The year 2026 was meant to bring stability to the British monarchy, finally giving King Charles the chance to cement his vision of a streamlined, modern institution. Instead, the palace walls are now vibrating with a tension not felt since the early 90s. What began as a whisper in the corridors of Windsor has rapidly escalated into a full-blown crisis, threatening to rewrite everything the world thought it knew about the most famous family on Earth. At the heart of this storm lies not only the spectacular downfall of Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, the man formerly known as Prince Andrew, but also a series of resurfacing connections to Meghan Markle that stretch back far further than the official record has ever admitted. For years, the public was fed a simple narrative. An American actress meets a British prince on a blind date, love blossoms, and the rest becomes history. However, as of April 2026, that tidy story is being dismantled by high-level insiders and newly released legal documents pointing toward a far more tangled social web. The conversation now revolves around elite social circles, exclusive networking events, and a shared history during the mysterious years long before global fame ever brushed against the Sussex name. What's currently driving royal biographers into a frenzy isn't simply whether the two crossed paths, but why the palace fought so relentlessly for so long to ensure no one ever dared to ask. Everything shifted permanently in early 2026 when news broke that Andrew had been arrested on suspicion of misconduct in public office. For a man who had already been stripped of his titles, his security, and his dignity, this was the final crushing blow. Yet while the headlines fixated on the legal charges, the real tremors were felt deep within the discovery phase of the investigation. As authorities began sifting through decades of travel logs, guest lists, and private communications, a striking pattern began to surface. That pattern placed Andrew in the same exclusive environments as a young Meghan during her time in Toronto and London. None of this is wild speculation. It's the cold, hard reality of the elite social circuit. Back in the early 2000s, both figures were navigating a very specific, very small world built around high-stakes networking. We're talking about the years before Suits exploded into a global phenomenon, a period when Meghan was carefully building her brand and her connections in spaces like Soho House, an environment where Andrew was also a frequent and well-documented guest. According to insiders, as the 2026 investigation deepens, the social maps being reconstructed by authorities are revealing overlaps that the palace had previously brushed aside as mere coincidence. Behind palace doors, tension is reportedly at an all-time high, and the reason runs deeper than Andrew's personal scandals. This investigation cuts straight to the heart of the monarchy's vetting process itself. Should it be proven that the two were operating in the same circles long before Harry ever entered the picture, troubling questions arise about what the palace truly knew ahead of the 2018 wedding. Did Charles have access to information he deliberately chose to ignore? Or worse still, was he warned by his own brother about a past that the public was never supposed to uncover? Tracing the depth of this connection means revisiting Meghan's mystery years between 2010 and 2015. During this stretch, she was deeply immersed in intense social climbing and professional networking. As her filming schedule kept her in Toronto, she became a regular fixture at Soho House, a private members' club celebrated for its discretion and its A-list clientele. It was within those walls that she forged a deep, lasting bond with Marcus Anderson, the man often described as the most important person in her life outside of her husband. Far more than just a friend, Marcus served as a gatekeeper to some of the world's most powerful people. During this same window, Andrew was leveraging his role as a trade envoy to frequent many of these very same international hubs. Thriving in the company of the wealthy and the influential, he repeatedly crossed paths with the same fixers and connectors who shaped Meghan's social world. Insiders are now drawing attention to specific events in London and New York where both names appeared on guest rosters. Although no confirmed photographs of the two together from that era have surfaced, the sheer scale of the overlap has fueled years of debate among royal historians who find it statistically improbable that the pair didn't, at the very least, share a conversation. The mystery only deepened in late 2025 when Marcus Anderson was conspicuously absent from Meghan's latest media projects. For a man who had been her shadow for an entire decade, his sudden retreat from the spotlight has raised more than a few eyebrows. Some now believe he knows far too much about the shared social circles of the early 2000s and has been quietly advised to keep a low profile as the Andrew investigation continues to heat up. If Marcus was the bridge that facilitated Meghan's entry into the royal world, the question becomes whether he was also the one managing the social collisions with Andrew years earlier. One of the most damning pieces of evidence supporting this theory actually surfaced back in 2016, though its true significance went unrecognized until recently. That October, the world was rocked by a headline in the Sunday Express revealing that Prince Harry was secretly dating an American actress. At the time, Harry was reportedly furious, desperate for privacy and determined to control the narrative himself. Yet here is the detail that still haunts the palace today. The leak didn't originate from Harry's staff, nor did it come from Meghan's PR team. Instead, it came from a staff member connected to the House of York, the household of Prince Andrew himself. So why would Andrew's camp be the ones to leak Harry's private relationship to the press? Within the world of royal politics, a leak is never just a leak. It is a strategic move with calculated intent. By outing the relationship early, Andrew's household effectively seized control of the story before the palace's main press office could sanitize it. However, a darker theory is circulating in 2026. Some now believe the leak was actually a warning shot. By thrusting Meghan into the spotlight, Andrew ensured that her past social connections would face heavy media scrutiny, almost as if to say, "I know who she is, and I know where she's been." Even the framing of the leak itself was peculiar. The coverage was overwhelmingly positive, painting Meghan as a humanitarian and a modern-day Diana. Such a glowing introduction made it nearly impossible for the palace to object to the relationship later without appearing prejudiced. The whole maneuver was a masterclass in PR manipulation, and the fact that it originated from the York household suggests a level of familiarity with Meghan's background that Andrew has never publicly acknowledged. Then comes the now famous story of the first meeting, an anecdote Harry has retold many times in both his memoir and various interviews. According to him, when Meghan first met Andrew at Royal Lodge, she was so unfamiliar with the royal family that she mistook him for a member of the staff, specifically a servant holding a bag. It's a tale designed to emphasize her cluelessness and her refreshing indifference to royal status. Yet for anyone who knows the actual timeline, the story simply does not hold water. Long before Meghan ever met Harry, she was already best friends with Princess Eugenie, Andrew's younger daughter. The two had traveled together, partied together, and moved within the same close-knit circle of friends in London. How could anyone be close friends with a woman, step into her world, and operate in her circles, yet fail to recognize her world-famous father, a man whose face was plastered across every tabloid in the UK? To many palace insiders, the servant story has always felt like a manufactured piece of plausible deniability. Had Meghan openly acknowledged knowing Andrew, she would have been forced to explain how they met and what kind of social circles they shared. By feigning confusion and treating him as just another face in the room, she effectively shut down any inquiry into their past connections. It functioned as a reset button for her history with the York family. But in 2026, as Andrew faces criminal investigation, that reset button is being pushed firmly back, and the very questions she once worked so hard to avoid are now more relevant than ever. Perhaps the most startling development of all unfolded in the legal world, far removed from the carefully curated image of the royal family. During the civil proceedings involving Virginia Giuffre and the late Jeffrey Epstein, a legal team made a move that absolutely stunned the monarchy. David Boies, one of the world's most aggressive and successful lawyers, publicly stated his intent to depose Meghan Markle. He wasn't seeking her as a defendant. Rather, he wanted her as a witness. Boies argued that Meghan likely possessed important knowledge regarding Andrew's activities and associations. Consider the legal logic required to make such a claim. A lawyer doesn't simply ask to depose a member of the royal family on a whim. It demands a firm belief that the person has first-hand awareness of the social environments under investigation. Why would a lawyer in New York believe that an actress from Suits had insight into the private social world of a British prince, unless there was real evidence that their paths had crossed within the very environments being scrutinized? Although the deposition never happened because the case settled out of court, the request itself remains on the public record. It stands as a smoking gun pointing toward a history of shared circles that the palace has never bothered to address. Now in 2026, with new Epstein-related files surfacing, those old legal notes are being revisited. Sources claim that buried within the latest document release are references to media value, the notion that tying the Sussex name to the Andrew scandal was worth millions in publicity. Yet the real value, insiders insist, was never in the scandal itself. It lay in the leverage. December 2025 brought another seismic moment when a fresh batch of documents connected to the Epstein investigation sent shockwaves rippling through the media. These weren't merely names of associates buried in some old ledger. They were internal emails exchanged between media conglomerates and powerful PR firms. One particular email from March 2020 detailed a strategic discussion about a single article that tied Prince Harry's public comments on Andrew's friendship with Epstein to the Sussexes' own dramatic departure from the UK. The publicity value of that one connection alone was estimated at over $4 million. Such a figure highlights the brutal reality of the Sussex-York link. Whether they like it or not, the media has discovered that the most profitable narrative in royal history is the one binding the rebel couple to the disgraced prince. Yet for the palace, this isn't simply a matter of money. It's a question of brand contamination. King Charles has reportedly spent a significant portion of early 2026 locked in private meetings with his legal team, all in an effort to decouple the Sussex brand from the Andrew fallout. The problem, however, is painfully clear. The harder the palace tries to separate them, the more aggressively history pulls them back together. Files from late 2025 also exposed something even more sinister. Certain prank calls and carefully placed media stories were intentionally deployed to keep their names anchored in the same headlines. Why? The reasoning is cold and calculated. As long as the two remain linked in the public mind, audiences stay distracted by the drama rather than zeroing in on the systemic failures of the monarchy's vetting and security protocols. It has become a relentless game of containment, one that is growing harder to win with each passing month. As 2026 marches forward, the strategy inside the palace has shifted from denial into pure containment mode. Charles is reportedly trapped in an impossible dilemma. He has successfully removed Andrew from public life, stripping him of his honors and pushing him out of royal lodge. At the same time, he cannot afford to let Andrew become a loose cannon. A man who has lost everything has very little reason to keep the palace's secrets locked away. Whispers of a private summit held at Balmoral in early 2026 have begun to surface, where the senior royals reportedly gathered to discuss what insiders are now calling the Andrew problem. Princess Catherine, according to those familiar with the meeting, has been the most vocal about maintaining a hard line. She firmly believes that any attempt to accommodate Andrew or by his silence through financial support will only generate more risk over time. Her approach is one of total institutional hygiene. She wants the monarchy thoroughly sanitized of the York and Sussex drama long before she and William ascend to the throne. William, on the other hand, is said to be far more cautious in his thinking. He recognizes that pushing Andrew too far could trigger something dangerous. The disgraced prince might begin speaking openly about the vetting process that took place in 2017 and 2018. He might start revealing the warnings that were ignored and the social overlaps that were quietly buried. Should it ever be confirmed that the palace knew about a pre-existing connection between Andrew and Meghan and still allowed the marriage to proceed, the institution would look negligent at best and outright complicit at worst. All of this circles back to the heart of the mystery, the elusive years between 2010 and 2015. Throughout 2026, independent researchers and investigative journalists have begun unearthing ghosts in the digital record. Old social media posts that vanished overnight, guest lists scrubbed clean, and photographs mysteriously removed from agency databases. Many are searching for the so-called yacht photos, those infamous images that once circulated online allegedly showing women at elite events where Andrew was present. Although fact-checkers were quick to confirm that the women in those specific images were not Meghan Markle, the discussion itself exposed something far more telling. The palace's reaction was disproportionately swift and aggressive. They didn't just deny the photos. They actively tried to erase the entire conversation surrounding them. Such an extreme response suggests that while the photos themselves may have been fabricated, the very concept of placing her in those environments was a red zone for the royal PR machine. By 2026, the focus has pivoted away from photos and towards social nodes. Investigators are now zeroing in on the people who connected them, looking closely at high-end property developers, international fixers, and the elite members of both the Toronto and London social scenes. These are individuals who don't talk to the press, but they certainly do talk to the authorities. As the criminal investigation into Andrew's misconduct in public office continues to expand, these nodes are being squeezed harder than ever before, and the information they hold is beginning to leak through the cracks. Perhaps the most telling piece of the entire puzzle is the heavy silence emanating from Montecito. Ever since the 2026 arrest of Andrew and the release of the latest Epstein files, Meghan Markle has remained utterly silent on the matter. For a woman who has built her whole public identity on the power of voice and the moral duty of calling out injustice, her refusal to comment on the York family fallout is nothing short of glaring. Sources close to the Duchess claim that behind closed doors, she is deeply concerned. Yet this concern isn't for Andrew himself. It is concern for the narrative. She fully understands that if Andrew's defense team decides to weaponize social history as a way to deflect blame or argue that his actions were standard within his elite circle, her own past could be dragged straight into the courtroom. Against a man who has already hit rock bottom, she holds no leverage whatsoever. Inside the palace, her silence is being watched just as carefully as Andrew's. Those at the top recognize that the Sussexes and the Yorks are essentially two sides of the same coin, people who know the inner workings of the institution and who possess the power to inflict serious damage on it. While Harry and Meghan have wielded their voices to speak openly about feelings and family tensions, Andrew holds something far more dangerous. He holds the facts of the social web. And in 2026, facts are the only currency that truly matters. We now find ourselves standing at a genuine crossroads in royal history. The shared circles theory is no longer some fringe conspiracy bouncing around the internet. It has evolved into a live investigation actively being debated in the highest offices of the land. The arrest of Andrew in 2026 was the first domino to topple, but it almost certainly won't be the last. As more documents are released and more insiders feel emboldened to step forward, the official version of how Meghan entered the royal family is heading straight toward its greatest challenge yet. Was she truly the outsider who knew nothing of the world she was stepping into? Or was she actually a woman who had already navigated the outermost edges of that world for years? And if she had indeed crossed paths with Andrew in the elite social spaces of the 2000s and 2010s, why did both of them agree to play the role of perfect strangers? The answer almost certainly lies in the preservation of the monarchy itself. The institution simply cannot afford for the public to realize just how small and how deeply interconnected the world of the global elite truly is. Over the coming months, we can expect more strategic leaks, more carefully worded denials, and more aggressive attempts to control the story. However, the truth about the mystery years is already out there, buried within travel logs and hidden inside the memories of the people who were physically in the room. As Charles, Catherine, and William work tirelessly to contain the damage, they are slowly coming to a chilling realization. The biggest threat to their future isn't some rebel duchess sitting comfortably in California. It is the disgraced prince in Sandringham who knows exactly where all the bodies are buried. If you followed this breakdown and it has left you questioning the official story, please know that you're not alone. The year 2026 is proving that the most fascinating chapter of the royal story isn't what they choose to show us on the balcony. It is what unfolded in the shadows years before the cameras ever started rolling. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Do you believe the shared circles were merely a coincidence, or was the York House leak in 2016 the very first sign of a much deeper secret? Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for our next deep dive, where we'll be examining the specific fixers who connected the Toronto social scene to the heart of Windsor. Stay locked in, because this story is only just getting started.